All right. This is episode number 25 in season 2 for Who's Even Listening. Welcome back, everybody. And we have a very, very special guest here. We have Joanne McAfee. Did I say that correctly, right?
You did.
Hopefully. Okay, yes. I was just making sure I didn't want to say it wrong. But thank you again for taking the time out of your day to join us.
Thank you.
And,
thank you for having me.
Of course. And she obviously brings a lot into the table for us, and we're going to get into that. But obviously, as always, same message. ELE, everybody love everybody. Let's spread love. Let's try to make this world a better place and spread peace into this world. And hopefully we want to make this world better for us all to want to live in and exist in. And that's our goal. And hopefully we're doing that. And hopefully we're spreading our message to influence others to want to do that as well. But with that being said, obviously this is season 2, episode 25. Very special guest. And obviously you bring a lot to the table here. We were talking before we got started, but obviously I'm just going to give you a little highlight of what you did, and I want you to kind of give a brief introduction to the people of kind of what got you to the point you're at now.
Sure.
But so I know you've done immigration law, you've done education work, you've studied at Villanova, you did Catholic Legal Immigration Network, and DOJ Acceleration for Family-Based Immigration Law. Hopefully I said that right, because I'm not too versed on that. Accreditation, sorry, accreditation. So obviously, yeah, with that being said, obviously you've done a lot. So I know you've been into a lot, and you also were telling me a lot of different perspectives you've had family-wise too, as well,
Sure.
with a lot of different things. So you have a lot of different perspectives. So I know you want to go ahead and give a little introduction to yourself.
Sure. So I am a native Delawarean, born and raised here. I had short stints where I lived in Pennsylvania and then in Florida, but I came back here after I was divorced from my first marriage to raise my kids here because
Gotcha.
I liked being raised in Delaware. I am remarried. My husband is originally from Mexico. And so I have walked through the processes with him of his immigration journey, also with some of his family members. They've been here since 2001. Okay. And I have 2 grown sons, and we live in Lincoln.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, so sweet. We like that. Nothing wrong with that. So I guess the first question I wanted to ask you is what really led you down to the path to go down the route you did? Like, what made you really want to take the route and stand for what you stand for?
So I have always been really drawn to specifically Latino families just because of their family values, because they are so strong with family and community, and they have always seemed to me to be there for one another, to, defend each other, to step up when something happens or someone needs help. So I just have always had friends that were Latinos or from lots of different backgrounds or ethnicities and nationalities. So I think that because I was exposed to those things pretty much my whole life, I just have always seen the humanity in, people that are very different than
100%.
Me, or grew up different, or have different religions or ideas, customs, all of that. And I just have always appreciated learning from them.
Yeah.
So the journey into the law part, though, happened from going to the border in 2019.
I see.
So that was when things really first started getting hectic at the border. We had all these caravans that were headed north, and that was, of course, during Trump's first presidency.
Correct.
And he was, I'm sure probably panicked as a president to see this craziness at the border and trying to get a handle on what do we do? And so anyway, I went down there with a group of women who it was through an organization called Women of Welcome.
Okay.
They are just on Facebook. And I always say that they're kind of the love child of the National Immigration Forum and World Relief. So they were all women who just were really curious about what was going on with immigration and who said yes to an invitation to go see for themselves. Awesome. So while we were there, we met with folks from nonprofits who we're working with the immigrant population on both sides.
Okay.
So people that were forced to wait on the other side, and then
I see. Okay.
yeah,
Okay,
people
makes
that
sense.
were also able to come over, and they were, providing different things, clothing and food, and helping where they could with like legal processes and things like that. So they kind of went over with us like the history of migration to the United States, which was
Gotcha.
really interesting. Just showing that it's something that's always existed,
Yeah,
right?
it's never. Yeah.
And worldwide,
away.
it's something that's always
Yeah.
existed. And it's actually, a lot of people don't realize that migration is a human right. So, it's like if you don't feel safe or you can't feed your family, you have the right to move somewhere else.
Yeah, we all did here. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 100%.
And all of us would do that,
Yep,
right? To feed our
100%.
kids.
Well said. Well said.
So anyway, I learned a lot because, they gave us kind of like a brief overview of how immigration worked. They talked a lot about asylum and what was going on with that because I would say the majority of people that were coming were looking for asylum.
Yeah.
And then we met with Border Patrol. We met with migrants on the other side in Mexico that told their story about like why they needed to leave home.
Yeah.
So I knew that those stories would be hard to hear because I had already heard some.
Oh, I can't imagine. Yeah, I'm sure.
I think that what really struck me was the one girl was sharing her interactions with Border Patrol.
Okay.
And it really, like, as a white American who, has never really had a run-in with law enforcement, I was kind of horrified, honestly.
Yeah.
It was definitely not a good report. And, I think that obviously law enforcement is a necessary thing. Like, we all want to be safe. And I appreciate the people that put their lives on the line every day
100%.
to keep us safe. But at the same time, I think that it's very easy in those types of positions where you have all this authority
Correct.
to lose sight of the humanity of the people that you're dealing with.
We all abuse
I think
power.
that's kind
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
what had happened. But because of that story, I started to feel a little bit of responsibility. Like, okay, well, this is my country and like, this is what's going on in my country. And like, how do I become part of the solution?
Yeah, I respect that. Heck yeah. No, that's a great way to say that. And I wish more people thought that way. I think even me, I think we all fall victim to it with sometimes how bad our thought process can get or how bad things look on the outside where we kind of almost just like, what am I going to do to fix it? We almost just kind of don't even want to do anything about it because like, what am I really going to do? And the truth is, like you said, we all need to be doing something. If we all felt that way and did act upon it like you do and try to find something that is finding a solution for that, we'd create a whole lot better world. But I don't think a lot of people think that way, and we need to try to flip that switch and do that. Because I think that's what you just said. There's a lot of people need to learn from because we all fall victim to just blaming someone else or thinking that we can't do. But even our little part, even if it's like I always tell people, even if I make this podcast and change one person, you're doing your job.
Yeah.
And even if it's not magnified and be 1,000 people or 20,000 people, whatever everybody thinks is significant, but just doing one or helping one person is doing your part.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? If we all felt that way, but so I think that's beautifully said. That's beautifully said. But that's a crazy experience. I've always wanted to experience that myself too in some capacity because I always bring up that we all should before we talk about anything, you should be able to know about it. You know what I mean? Until we speak about something, until you're actually seeing it for the first hands and with your eyes, it's we all, like you said, and I even seen it in what you sent to us when you were coming on the show, talking about how a lot of people are just misinterpreted and there's a lot of miscommunication, a lot of just websites, a lot of people that just promote stuff that is complete misinformation, and there's just so much out there and people can just read that and not know any better, and it's sad. It's very sad. So we could do a heck of a lot better doing that. But
Yes.
so we'll get deeper into that. But I wanted to ask you too, what would, as of right now, what would you say the most surprising interaction you've had so far would it be, if you have one that maybe sticks out to you?
I think that what has surprised me the most is how diverse people really are.
Yeah.
You can have people that come from the same country that maybe they're even applying for the same thing here, but their stories are so different. Or maybe they've experienced some of the same things, but because their lives are different, like something might be available to one and not available to the other.
Okay.
So it's, I guess, they always say like, this group of people is not a monolith, right? Like you can't say like all, this group does this or says this or thinks this way, because it is never the case.
Yeah, correct. There's always an exception, 100%.
So I think that was probably one of the largest lessons that I have gotten out of this whole journey is that and also that that we tend to, especially in this country, judge people by what is available to us. Like we judge people's choices because we think that everyone has things available to them that we do. So we're looking at it through our own lens and we're saying like, well, I would have chosen something different. I would have gone this route, not realizing that person, didn't have that as an option because they don't have the same things available to them, or maybe they have something different available, or maybe there's nothing available. So it's, I guess, just opening my eyes to the fact that we all live a different experience.
No, 100% well said. Couldn't agree more. We're out in somebody else's shoes. That's 100% right. And I guess the only thing, while we were talking about the borders, I know you went on that, I want to finish on this before we transition. But what do you wish that an average person, like for example me, that's never been there, or anybody like me that's never been there, what would you want them to understand about like what actually happens there? What would be like the one thing you'd want to stand out?
When I went to the border, for me personally, I decided that it was going to be like a fact-finding trip, right? Like I was going to gather information, and I decided that anybody that would talk to me that was a local, I was going to like interview them a little bit.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I heard over and over again when I would say like, do you feel safe living here? Is they would be like, yeah, absolutely. Actually, I went to El Paso both times, and they were, I want to say, they were something like in the top 10 safest cities in the United States.
Really? I wouldn't have known that. Okay.
Until the Walmart shooting that happened like 3 weeks before I got there in 2019.
Wow, I would never known that. How about
that? So, they, like, overall, the general feeling was we love being an international city. We love being able to go across the bridge to visit family or to go to school or to work or to just get great tacos or, whatever it may be.
Whatever it is. That's right. That's right.
And then people from the other side were doing the same thing, coming across to work or go to school or see family. And so they just kind of really functioned as, in many ways, as one community.
Yeah.
So I don't think that people realize that, because a lot of what you see on TV when people go to the border is, specifically from like law enforcement, and they're telling people, these stories of things. I want to just say this, like, when I heard Border Patrol talk the first time, it was the first time that I realized that their job can be extremely dangerous if they are trying to stop someone who's coming in with drugs or coming in with something, 100%. Right? Now, that idea of who's coming across the border, of course, has been very exaggerated, because if you look at like their numbers of people that are caught with drugs, it's actually a much smaller percentage than you would think. And most people that are bringing them are either green card holders or U.S. citizens. They're going down and bringing them back. Right.
I believe that.
So it isn't migrants, because it would make no sense. And Border Patrol even told us this. They were like, how much sense would it make for a cartel person to send a migrant over with a load of drugs when they know we're going to catch them and take it away?
Correct.
They're not going to make any money off of it.
Completely agree with that.
So that's one of those things that people get like way freaked out about, and with good reason. I mean, if the narratives that the media usually sells were 100% true, it would be terrifying, right? But the fact of the matter is that until you go and you talk to them and you see that, like, Border Patrol is saying these different things. One of the things too that they shared with us is they said, again, this is 2019, but they were saying groups come across sometimes in 200 and 300 at a time.
Oh wow.
And
okay, wow.
They will
On
either
purpose.
go.
That's on purpose too. Like that's
Yeah,
like
because
okay.
they were all traveling together
see.
for
I
safety.
see.
Yeah. And so once they crossed the river, they would either go east or west to
Okay.
look for Border Patrol in the distance.
Interesting.
Once they spotted them, they would all lay down so that Border Patrol knew they weren't a threat.
Oh wow. Okay.
So,
I see.
and I was like, you'll never hear
That's
that
deep.
on the
That's
news.
deep. No, that's wicked. No, you're right though. Well said. No, they wouldn't spin that. I agree with that. Wow. No, that's deep. Yeah, so no, like you said, it's we all get a picture painted to us. I always bring it like this. Like one of my buddies lives in Vegas. Shout out Leslie. But I always go out there every once in a while, and like I always tell him, like what you see on TV in Vegas. Like I always thought of like The Hangover, like the movie. You get out there, it's close to, but it's not. It's never exactly what you think. You know how it is. Like no matter
Yes.
where you're going, no matter there's always something
Yeah.
where it's never exactly how it is in your head. And I think we
sure.
all need to remind ourselves of that for sure. But all right, so I want to go into this because I personally don't know much about this. I wanted to get more into it. I'm sure maybe there's people at home that probably don't know as well. But the DOJ accreditation that you were talking about. So can you explain what that actually means and what kind of work will allow you to do? So I know you said you applied for it, right? That's what it said.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's been in place for about 60 years now.
Okay.
This program was created by the Department of Justice because they recognized that there are not as many immigration attorneys as you would think in the United States. Currently, we have about 15,000.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
No, nationally, that's like it's really a critical low.
Yeah,
considering how many people need the
That
services.
doesn't even sound. Yeah, that sounds.
So they created the program to say that if a person was willing to go to, trainings that they approve of,
Okay.
with like either a group of lawyers or a university, like something that they also recognized as being good at what they do. And then would come under like a nonprofit that was already recognized. So the way that it works is that you have the recognized nonprofits.
Okay.
They have to go through a process where they apply and they submit all this information to the Department of Justice about their insurance and the fee schedule, like how much they're going to charge people or whether they're going to do a sliding scale. But the main gist of it is they are promising that they will serve low to no income people.
Okay.
So, so of course it is the majority, right, that can't afford the attorneys because the processes with an attorney can be, like $6,000 for an asylum case. And that's really kind of the going rate, like in this area. So a lot of people, if you're new to the country and you haven't even been working.
Yeah, you don't have
You don't have $6,000.
No. And most people in this economy don't have it. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. And asylum has to be applied for within the first year that you're here.
Yeah.
So you don't have a lot of time to save money either.
100%.
Not if you're trying to, survive yourself.
Completely agree.
So then the other side of that is the accreditation. So in order for them to serve the folks, they have to have people who are operating in a sense the same way an attorney would, but they're not attorneys. Okay. So you go through the training, you then do an internship under a recognized org with usually someone else who has the accreditation.
I see.
Or a staff attorney that can oversee you.
Okay.
And so you're doing the work, you're hands-on, but someone is overseeing everything that you're doing, right?
It's kind of like a teacher in like
exactly.
an internship kind of thing.
Every application you fill out is being checked,
I see.
and sometimes someone is sitting right there with you and like kind of correcting you as you go along if you do something incorrectly. The biggest thing about immigration law is that you have to know how to assess a person's case. So you have to know how to figure out whether the person is inadmissible or admissible into the country, based on a lot of different things. Or you have to be able to figure out, are they deportable right now? And sometimes they can be both. They can be inadmissible and deportable.
Interesting.
Or they could have been admissible when they got here, but now they're deportable.
Okay.
So these are the moving parts, right, that you have to figure out. And sadly, because there are not enough people doing immigration law in our country, there are tons of folks who will do the work, but they don't know how to assess the case.
I see.
So what happens is they charge the person way more than we would charge them. From what I understand, even in Delaware, there's folks that are charging $1,000 for an asylum application. So they'll fill it out and they'll send it in, but they have no idea whether or not the person actually qualifies.
Wow. Okay.
So if they send it in and it goes into the court system, there's no way to get that back out without submitting a motion to the judge and to the ICE attorney that's overseeing the case. So then you need an attorney.
I see.
So
Okay.
what happens is folks are going to people who don't know how to assess them. They're paying all this money.
And
They
making
don't
it
qualify.
worse. Yeah.
Then they have to go get an attorney and pay them more money
Yeah.
to get the
Oh my
application
gosh,
back out.
okay.
So it's all this money wasted
Yeah,
that
good
didn't
Lord.
benefit them at all. So it's really frustrating.
Oh, no, that is. That is. So I guess the other question I have before you get off of that is, I'm sure there's a lot, but is there like main determining factors? Like what would be the main determining factors that, make them, like you said, deportable or not? Like what are the factors there that kind of like...
So for a person to be deportable, it really is as simple as like, did they overstay a visa, right?
Okay.
Are they no longer in like legal or lawful presence is what we call it. So they can be deported for that. There are tons of folks here that because they now qualify for something like a green card, like say, for instance, somebody comes into the country and they came in with a visa, right? But they overstayed it, and now they're married to a U.S. citizen. So they can apply for the green card because they're married to a U.S. citizen. And because of that, it's kind of like their time here that was unlawful is waived.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, interesting.
But
okay.
a spouse is the only person that can do that for you.
Wow.
And that's only if you entered with permission. If you didn't enter with permission, you actually have to go back to your home country and go through the consular process there.
And then come back. Okay,
So, yeah.
I see. Okay. So really the only way, in a sense, around it is to come in correctly, and then when your time runs out, to almost find marriage, and then that would be that's really the only... Okay, that's interesting.
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
interesting.
So, and I just want to say that like everything that I'm talking about right now is actually like you can find it on the USCIS website or the State Department's website as far as like, visas and how all of that works. I like to mention that because I'm not an attorney. So
No, understandable.
I like to kind of like cite my sources and let people know that they can go look all that up for themselves.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad you're saying it. No, like you said, you got to find the right source. That's the key, because not everybody goes to the right source to find it. So
Yes,
100%.
true.
100%. All right. And
Also, let me just tell you this.
Go ahead.
There's two types of accreditation as well. There's partial, which means you can do family-based, which is like just the applications.
Okay.
And then there's full accreditation that allows you to represent people in immigration court.
Okay.
Just like an attorney does. So, of course, there's more training involved with the full
doing both
accreditation.
sides almost,
and
yeah.
you have to have letters of recommendation from like immigration attorneys that have worked with
see.
you, because they are pretty much attesting that you have like moral fitness, that you're going to do the right thing and follow the laws and encourage other people to follow the laws. And also that, like you're familiar enough with the laws to do a good job.
Yeah, 100%.
So I actually applied for full accreditation in October, and so I'm hoping that we'll get an answer soon.
Okay. So that's awesome. Well, we're hoping for you. We're hoping the best. We're hoping for you. You sound like you definitely have a good head on yourself for sure. I think you're definitely suited for that. But what I wanted to say too is that what I'm getting from it, I hope maybe I'm wrong, 'cause you're into it more than I am, but just from outside looking in right now, it sounds like from what you're saying, obviously they're understaffed is the main thing. And then the other thing is what it sounds like what they're doing is good. It's just they're not doing enough of it, is kind of what you're saying. It sounds like like the morals, like it sounds like they're on a good route to it. To me, that sounds like a good route. But I just think maybe from what you're saying, it's just not impactful enough because it's not enough people doing it in a sense.
That's it. That's exactly it. Because, like I said, there's only about 15,000 immigration attorneys. There's about 2,600 accredited reps total.
Yeah.
So I think it's just because people don't know about the programs, but also because when I say that like people are doing it without having the accreditation, I don't think that they have like malicious intent or, maybe some of them know that they're not supposed to be doing it and they're just raking in the money. Because that can happen in
100%.
communities where people only trust other people from their own country.
Yeah.
And in Central and South America, notarios can do immigration work there legally, but here they can't. But see, when they come here, they don't realize that.
I see.
So they end up in a bad situation. And then it is technically illegal to be doing it. It's unauthorized practice of immigration law.
Wow. Okay.
So they can get charged from the state and the federal government if they're caught.
Wow. Okay. No,
So,
that's deep.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So yeah, it really just needs a little more awareness is really what it needs
Exactly.
more to.
And when I find people that are doing it, I'm like, listen, I don't necessarily want you not to do it.
Yeah.
I just want you to be able to assess people correctly. Because right now,
do it for the right reason. Yeah.
if they send an application in and it gets denied, they get put in removal proceedings. Like that's a new thing under
It's like immediate almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Okay. Okay.
Before it used to be like you could kind of regroup and see if maybe there was something else you could apply for, or maybe you don't.
It's like a one shot kind of deal kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Right. So people can get hurt by it, and if you don't know how to assess them, and you're telling them to fill out the wrong application.
Oh yeah.
And then they
Yeah,
get
it's
turned
terrible.
down. Yeah.
That's
When maybe
terrible.
they really did qualify for something else.
And yeah, you messed the
So,
one shot. Yeah, that's awful. No, that's a whole different.
Yeah,
whole
it
thing.
happens.
No, that's sad. No, that is. Okay. Yeah. No, that's very interesting. Yeah, I hope that's very good information for people. That's very interesting. And obviously, I know you said you worked with international nonprofits as well, so I'm going to ask you a few questions about that. I wanted to discuss maybe the countries and regions you worked in, like what maybe organizations that you worked for, or is it just involved in something else?
No, so when I did work for Women of Welcome for a little while, I was an ambassador for them, which just means that people scheduled phone calls with me. So women from within the Facebook group, like we would put out an ad and say, like, if you have questions or you just want to talk to somebody about immigration, you set up an appointment for a call. And I had basically 3 different types of calls. I had people that like maybe we're more on the conservative side and really had questions about what was actually happening at the border, because when I started with them, it was like either right at the end of or maybe right after they had stopped like the huge surge in family separation where we were taking lots of people's kids. So so people were concerned about that, and they would want to talk about that and talk about like what policies were put in place that caused that to happen.
Correct.
And then I had folks that were like, they wanted to talk to someone who was like-hearted because they had served the immigrant community around them, and they noticed that as things were becoming more political, like even within their churches, that people were pulling away from that. And so they were kind of like, but I still, like, I love these people and I still want to do what I've been doing, but nobody wants to go with me anymore. Yeah. So they would be like, am I crazy? Or, so, we would talk and they'd be like, it's so nice to talk to somebody else who sees things, the same way or whatever. And then the third type of person would be someone who, was calling kind of to argue, to argue about our stances.
I'm sure you get somebody, I can't imagine. Yeah.
Things. And I mean, I learned a lot through that experience as well, because I really learned how to listen to people.
Yeah, well
and
said.
How to kind of hold space for their concerns and to acknowledge that their concerns are valid.
100%.
And once I would listen to somebody kind of get everything off their chest, then I had an opportunity to say, my experience has been a little bit different. Do you mind if I share?
Yeah.
And when I said it that way, it was also respectful of where they stood and whether or not they wanted to hear it. But most of the time, they would say, yeah, that's fine. And my job has never been to change anybody's mind. Yeah. It's just been to offer them a different narrative to consider. Well
said, because we can't do, but we can do that. Yep, exactly.
Exactly.
We can't change people, but we can try to plant the seed and let it grow. That's all we can do.
Yeah, and I mean, and like you said, that as far as experiences go, like I acknowledge that there are folks who have had horrible experiences. Correct. That involved someone from another country. Yeah. And so like I'm not going to ignore that. I'm not going to pretend like that doesn't happen.
100%.
But I also know that my experience is valid as well, and that and so I can only bring to the table what I've experienced.
Yep, exactly. 100%. You can only share what you've had. And everybody's got a different perspective. That's all it comes down to. 100% agree. 100% agree. So I know you said you did a lot of public speaking as well in the past.
I've done some. Like I spoke at the No Kings rally in Dover this past time.
How about that? Okay, no crap, no crap.
And then they had me at another rally that they did that was much smaller. And then there's a friend of my husband's who is a professor at Del Tech in Dover. Okay. He invites me to come and speak to his class at the end of each, session.
Nice.
He teaches post-Civil War history.
Oh, that was one of my favorite classes in school, man. I miss that. Oh, man, that's great.
So he's always like, hey, can you come and share, and I just kind of go over the basics of like how the immigration system works and, how, like what are the pathways for people and, what are their options and how does it all work? How does inspection at the border work and all that kind of stuff. So
no, absolutely. 100%. No, we all need, I think, like you said, the key is from what you're telling me, and I think we just need to have more awareness and more people knowing, what's actually happening, and
right.
let's not try to look through the rhetoric. I always tell people that. That's one thing I got told as a kid, but it's so true. We got to learn to read through the rhetoric and find what is actually truthful, what actually checks out. And it's so hard nowadays. I'm not saying it's easy because it's not. There's so much out there, but
it's true.
You do have to try to not take everything as immediately as truthful and try to do your own research and try to find something that's actually backs everything up and not just immediately assume everything's correct that you see. I think we all kind of fall victim to that.
We're bombarded with information.
100% every day. All of it. 100%. 100%. But no, that's awesome. So I want to talk about this too, because I know you said you had a different perspective. I wanted to, obviously you don't have to say stuff if you don't want to, but talking about the family that you have. I know you said you got kind of two different perspectives here with what your situation is. I don't want to speak for you, but I want you to talk on that and how that's kind of maybe played a part in how you view things. As you were talking about how the church and also how that affected you as well. With that, I'm sure it affected you too, with just immigration as well. But how you look on that too. But just curious to kind of you to show that to the viewers, because I think that's a very interesting perspective. Not everybody has that.
So like I said, I'm married to a man that was born in Mexico, and knowing his family and, like I said, having lots of diversity in my friend groups all along, when things were starting to be said about specifically the immigrant population, like, there were things said about, Mexico's not sending their best here and things like that. And there was a very specific, like, stereotype that was, kind of like just put out there. And then I think it just caused a lot of fear. So being someone who is married into an immigrant family, it was really hard for me because, I had shared with you that I come from an evangelical background, and I have spent most of my life in church. I was, in ministry for many years. And when those things started to be said, I noticed that folks that maybe always kind of felt that way but never would say it, felt emboldened to really be open about how they were feeling. And there was a lot of fear around, the border, around, people coming here who maybe had nefarious intent. And like I said, I don't ever want to like downplay people who have been victims of those situations. But I also like to mention that if you actually look at like the data that can be proven and that like, ICE and Border Patrol are putting out there, you see that really the number of folks that are committing crimes here is so much smaller than the number of people that are here. So it is the like minority that are doing those things, and unfortunately it's ruining it for everyone because of the fear factor. 100%. And so anyway, with me being married into that family and watching my husband go through the processes that he went through and realizing just like how long they are and how hard it is and how many hoops people have to jump through, how expensive it is. I think that people are under this misconception that there is a path for every person. It's just that they're choosing not to take it. And that's not how it works. Like our immigration system is very particular about who is allowed and why they're allowed and what qualifications they have to meet to have a path.
Yeah.
So this is what I tell the kids when I teach them at Del Tech. But I say there's 4 ways to come. There's blood, sweat, tears, and luck.
Yeah.
So
Sad,
it's like
sad
if
true,
you
yeah.
don't have a path, like you don't have a relative that can that qualifies to sponsor you, or there isn't a job that you can do that falls under a work visa, or you didn't have something horrific happen to you in your country where you can ask for asylum.
Yeah.
Or you aren't one of the 30,000 people a year that gets the picked in the diversity lottery, there is no path for you.
Yeah.
So it's like when people are coming to the border, I hear so many times people say they should get in line. They should do it the right way. They should do it the way my relatives did it. And it's like, well, there isn't really a line for them to get into because they don't fall into any of these categories. And so what they do have is this understanding that they were attacked 3 times in their country by gangs and, put in the hospital and could have died. And so they have family here that is saying, if you can make it here, you can stay with us.
Correct.
And so they come and they ask for asylum at the border. And I would say that the majority of claims are valid, but they don't have representation when they go to court, and they don't know how to put their case together to show that they actually qualify.
Yeah.
And so they get turned down and
That's
deported.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were saying, of just not having enough people to vouch for them, and represent them. That's sad. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
Sad.
Yeah.
That's terribly sad. But no, yeah, I'm glad you shared that with me, because that's a very unique perspective I don't think everybody has, obviously. So that's something that I think gives you a whole different light to see things in too, that not everybody would too. And I think that's why you're so, because we talked about too, I'm like an emotional person, but I think you're very connected with what you do, and I think that's a big thing too, especially with what you're doing. You kind of have to be,
right.
And obviously you can go too far to help everybody. You know what I mean? That's the harder part. I think I would have with that job myself, where I don't think it'd be hard for me to not help someone. So I'm sure that's a difficult line to walk too, with that emotional detachment too, knowing that you have that connection and background. I'm sure it's hard I couldn't imagine personally telling somebody no, or that I can't do it for you or something. I'm sure that's quite a difficult conversation. So.
Yeah, I always try to give people something. Like if I can't help them, I try to give them a resource that maybe can. Because I don't like to let people walk away empty-handed.
100%. I couldn't do that. Yeah, that would break my heart. But oh man, yeah, it makes me definitely got, like I always said, it makes you got to realize no matter what you are, somebody's always got it worse, and let's all try to have a better mindset in life, and realize let's be grateful for what we have and try to help everybody else that doesn't have as much as we have. But that's all we can do.
For sure.
I want to talk a little bit into this too. I know you were, humans. This is what I want to talk about. So I want to really talk about what do you think, like when you're talking, because I really want to think about like through this problem, like why we're having this problem. Like when you're talking to people and you're doing the work that you do, what would you say? Is it sometimes even that maybe they're not aware of how to, like, I'm trying to like understand, like, is it maybe that the people that are trying to seek asylum or that are in this situation, do you think it's more from them not knowing who to reach out to, or is it that once they do reach out, they're almost kind of scammed, if that makes sense? Or do you think it's just a combination?
Yeah, so what happens is most people that are here are either under the impression that they don't have any options, or they do know that they have options, but they think that like an attorney is the only way they can go and they don't have thousands and thousands of dollars. Or they have gone to someone who didn't know how to properly assess them and been told that they don't have any options or whatever. But yes, it's lack of knowledge that causes people to end up being scammed in this. And even though like the government has put information out there saying like, the only people that are authorized to do this work are DOJ reps and immigration attorneys, they just don't, in their circles, they don't have that information. Correct. So there's a lot of word of mouth. And so if, my uncle went to this person in his church that filled out his paperwork, then I'm going to go to that person as well. Makes sense. And, so there's like this trust by proxy thing that
Yeah.
happens. And unfortunately,
Gets very misled. Yeah.
it is. And there's even there's even folks that are like training people to do immigration work as a forms preparer, which
okay.
it is a legitimate thing, but a forms preparer by law, the only thing they're allowed to do is have someone bring them the form that they want to fill out. They can translate it for them so that they know what it says.
I see.
They can ask the questions and fill in word for word what the person is saying and then hand it back to them to mail in.
Okay.
Like they are not allowed to tell them what application. Right.
It.
They're not allowed to tell them if they answered something incorrectly. Like that's legal advice.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that
so if they didn't understand something,
people
they could get very I see. That makes complete sense.
Exactly. So forms prepare, like if you can go on TikTok and you can type in like immigration paralegal or immigration forms preparer or, tax preparer, all those things. And you'll get tons of people who are doing immigration work and doing lives on TikTok and giving people legal advice.
Yeah. And it's not even valid at all. Yeah. That's sad. That's terrible. Yeah, sad. That's a lot of things too, but it's sad that it's even in something. Yeah, that's the worst part of it. It's in something like that that's affecting the people's day. It's just awful. Very sad. Very excuse me. Very sad. But before we wrap up, 'cause I think we got into it a lot there before we close. I wanted to talk about if you could. I know we just kind of really did that, but I really wanted to say advice for listeners, like for somebody that's maybe confused about immigration policy or families trying to navigate the system. What would you say the best thing to do would be to start? Like, what would you say? Like, kind of like give them like a blueprint of how to do the best route that they can, if that's possible.
So there is if they just Google accredited representatives or recognized organizations, it'll take them into the website where there's actually a list, and it's listed by state.
Okay.
It's listed by organization, and then also the representative, but it'll tell you. So like I always tell people, if you're looking at going to somebody for an immigration process, take their name and search it in the list and make sure that they have the accreditation.
Checks out.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if they don't and they're not telling you that they're an attorney, they can't show you that they've passed the bar, then
it's not going to help you.
Yeah, that person probably shouldn't be helping you with
100%.
this. And I know that it's really sad because there's so many people doing it, and I know that their livelihood is based on doing this. And like I said, I don't think that they have nefarious intent. I think that they helped, they filled out their own applications, and then they helped a couple family members, and then they helped somebody in their church. And after a while, they were like, it's not that hard. Why don't I just help people do this,
Yeah.
And filling out the form itself isn't that hard. But understanding the laws behind it that are, and really understanding, like, what they're asking in the questions, because sometimes the way they're worded is different than what they're actually asking
Completely
for.
Get that.
But you won't know that unless you know the process pretty well.
Correct.
So so I always, tell people, please don't go to someone who is not authorized to do it, because it could, cost you a lot of money and get you into trouble.
In a worse situation. Yeah.
So, but can I just share something else?
Of course.
I had to really think about it when I was thinking about coming here, as far as misconceptions that people have concerning immigration. The one that I hear all the time is the term open border, right? Okay. We had an open border. And I just want to share that I don't feel that the border has ever been open. And the reason for that is that, one, people have continued to risk their lives and the lives of their children to cross the river to get to the other side. If it were open, why would they do that?
That's a very good point.
The other thing is, at the border in 2024, we had expelled more than 1 million people back into Mexico. So what we were seeing was those that were being allowed in, but we weren't seeing those that were being sent back out. And we also weren't seeing the fact that we deported over 700,000 people from the border.
Yeah.
So those are, don't get me wrong, those are small numbers in comparison to how many people came in. But that number is also very inflated, because what people don't realize is that when people are talking about numbers of people that have crossed, there's also, I'll probably say the word wrong, recidivism,
Okay,
right?
you're
Where
good,
people
yeah.
are crossing more than once, but
Yeah.
they're getting counted every time they cross.
Yes.
That is like a huge thing that skews the
That
number.
makes complete sense.
And also, like, if they're saying that something is happening in one sector of the border, that doesn't mean it's happening in every sector of the border. But that's the thing, that's the picture that people get in their minds, is that if somebody in Yuma, says, "Oh, we had people knocking down the fences and shooting at border or whatever," it's like they're like, "Oh my God, it's happening all across our border."
Correct.
No,
Correct.
that's not true.
No, I couldn't agree more.
There's also the this idea of criminality with immigration. So immigration is civil law; it's not criminal law.
Correct.
So it's civil law is more like you get a ticket for jaywalking.
Yeah. Not as intense. Yeah.
You spray painted somebody's fence, right?
Correct.
Like it isn't as intense. It's not. And so when people are here, like when they overstay their visa, they can be deported under civil immigration law, but it isn't actually a crime.
Okay, I see. That makes sense.
So people get really confused with that. The other thing is there are two laws that govern what has happened at the border in the past 10 years. One of them says if you cross the border, yes, it's a misdemeanor, but it is a crime, and you can get a fine of $50.
Interesting. Okay.
And up to 6 months in jail.
Okay.
If they decide that they want to charge you. The reason we don't charge people most of the time is because of the Geneva Convention. We entered these international agreements that said that if people come to our borders and they are claiming that they need asylum, we will not charge them as a criminal.
Yeah.
So when people have come, and also there's been this thing about how the Secretary of Homeland Security abused parole, right? Well, it is their jurisdiction to decide who gets paroled and who doesn't. If you're dealing with a country like Haiti, where their president was assassinated, right? Where I just did some research into Haiti for an asylum case, where gangs have broken into their prisons and let everybody out.
Wow.
Like, it's bad there. It's really bad. And they are running the streets all the time. Kids can't go to school for a full week.
Awful.
Because it isn't safe to travel from their home to school.
Very sad.
The police can't go out during the day because the gangs are looking for them. They'll kill them.
Insane.
So it's very scary there. And so when you're looking at a situation like that, where the entire country is affected, you're not going to say to every Haitian that comes to the border, well, tell me your whole story. We have to make sure that, no, you're going to say, okay, right now we have temporary protected status for Haiti. So if you can prove to me that you're from Haiti, I'll parole you in for a year. It's your job to apply for whatever you need. If you don't, then you are removable. And when they come into the country, even though they're paroled, they're also given a notice to appear in immigration court, because they start their removal proceedings at the same time.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah.
So there's that. And then what I was saying to you about the Border Patrol, I asked 3 separate Border Patrol agents. One of them was a higher up. He spent his whole career in Border Patrol, and he worked in DC at the end of his career.
Okay.
And so he is, I trust him when he tells me something.
He's done it for a long time, yeah.
But they said that their process at the border was to take their ID. Of course, they did copies of it. They took photos and fingerprints of them. They ran their information against the FBI watch list, the Interpol list, right? So international police lists, and any criminal lists that they could get a hold of from that person's country.
Wow.
So they're vetted against at least 2, but most of the time 3 different lists.
Yeah.
So does that mean that somebody could never commit a crime in their past and then come in here and commit a crime?
For sure, correct.
Absolutely,
obviously, I'm not saying that's solidified. Sure. Yeah, 100%.
But like we only have to work with what we have to work with. And
Correct.
the majority of, I would say anybody that was paroled was checked.
Yeah.
So it isn't this idea of the open border meant that no one was being vetted.
Yeah.
And they just came in and went where they wanted to go.
Correct.
Since they have been here, have their, of course, there's people just like folks that have always lived here that get into crime.
100%.
It's a human condition. It isn't about where you're from.
Yeah, correct. It's not, just, we all do bad things. Yeah, everybody's got something, 100%.
And then I just want to say that, that the last thing that people don't understand is when this administration came in, of course, a large part of their platform both times was immigration, right? Was getting a handle on immigration. And I will say that what we have seen since the last Trump administration with how many folks that were coming to the border is not sustainable, really, because, and it's not that we can't process them or we don't have the jobs or we don't have any of that. It's that the processes themselves in immigration take so long that if you're continually adding to those numbers, you have people that are waiting 8 and 12 years for an asylum hearing.
Yeah, correct.
Insane,
There's
right?
overlapping, yeah.
So, and if you're an attorney or you're an accredited rep and you're that person's legal representative, I mean, unless you have a good reason to drop them, you are committed to that case for that long.
Yeah, good point. I didn't think about that. Yeah.
So it is a lot. And I would agree that, like, what we had happen was a lot, and that it did overwhelm systems and that, but what they said was, we're going to do mass deportation. We're looking at criminals and people who were ordered deported and never left.
Yeah.
Well, the American public has no issue with that, right? Yep. We don't, if there's a way to remove criminals, we're all for it.
We'd be doing it. Yeah, I agree with that.
And if there's a way to say to someone who has been ordered deported, like, you had due process, you went to court, this is what the judge said, you had a certain amount of time to leave the country and you didn't. Yeah. So they should not be surprised if they're picked up by ICE and and deported. But that's not what we're seeing now. So, correct. I mean, the numbers that ICE has reported themselves are saying that something like 73% of the people they've picked up have no prior criminal history.
Yeah, wow. How about that? That's a big percentage. Yeah, that's big.
So while people are cheering on ICE and saying, like, this is great, they're doing what I voted for and all of that, it's like, what you're not understanding is that a lot of folks that are being removed actually have applications in process.
No, there's two sides, yeah, like you said. There might be some good being done, like you said. I'm sure there is. I'm not saying it's all bad either. I'm right there with you. But yeah, I think we all try to.
Right.
We don't see the both sides there.
It's very nuanced,
we don't see
right?
both
Like,
sides there.
there is no, like, in immigration, there are black and whites, yes, of course, because the law is the law. But in arriving to what applies to who, it's very nuanced.
Completely.
So it's just, I just feel like I said, there's so much fear around immigration that people get wrapped up in this whole thing of, like, they're all criminals and they all need to leave. And if they're here without status or they're here without permission, then they're a criminal. And that's not always the case.
No, 100%. 100%.
And not even saying, like, that they've committed something that we would recognize as a crime. Like, a lot of people will say to me, if they overstayed their visa, then they're a criminal. Well, no, because it's civil law.
Yeah, correct. No, you're right. People,
so it's like, these are just a lot of things that people, the pieces of the puzzle that people just don't necessarily have to put together. And I have, compassion for that as well, because we don't know what we don't know.
Correct. 100%. No, well said. If we don't know, we can't. And that's the problem. But be willing to admit that, I think, is the other side of it. You're right. We don't know what we don't know. But at the same time, when we don't admit that, don't just act like you know. And I think that's the other part of it too. But I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And the other part I wanted to bring up that you brought up too, because I think we're both on the same page with this, talking about how, like, everything, like, for example, I could throw up a statistic that is completely oriented around what I want it to do. You know what I'm saying? So like everyone does it. Every party does that. Every country does that. We all manipulate a statistic to where it's showcasing what's good for us, like that benefits what I'm wanting it to benefit. And we can always find it out. Like you said, there's always something that's a little altered, and people like to mess with that stuff. And there's always a way to make it. For example, you can always bring it to this. You can categorize it to anything. You know what I mean? Like you could, like you said, if you put it to a certain year, it might look different, or a certain, time span, you could have it look fluctuated in a whole different way. So we can all misdeceive and, make it look a certain way and manipulate people to think that's true when it's not. So we all need to be aware of that is a thing, and that there is times that a lot of people put out stuff that isn't correct fully, and let's try to do a better job of finding the truth in things, because it's very hard to do nowadays. And that's one of the big things I wanted to paint with from what you're saying, especially with that policies and everything that's going on, what you're dealing with, because there is a lot of stuff floated out there. There's a lot of rhetoric. There's a lot of stats, and a lot of it, like you said, is kind of fear based and fear tactic, and it scares people. But at the same time, it's like, make sure what we're reading is actually truthful, and make sure that we know that with our own eyes, like you said.
Yeah, and I would recommend always that people find like organizations that have boots on the ground, that are actually doing the work. They're involved in the day-to-day, or they're involved in like policy, or and don't just look at one. Look at several and see compare what they're saying that is the same and what they're saying that's different. And don't ever trust anybody that can't cite their source.
Well said. Well said there. Well said there. Yeah, well said. I could not agree more. Was there anything you feel that we didn't cover that you wanted to bring up?
I just want to say, a lot of times when I speak about immigration, like, people will say, like, what can I do? How can I help? You know, right now with everything that's going on, I would never suggest to anyone that they put themselves in harm's way or anything like that. There are folks that are right now like really engaging a lot with ICE, as ICE is carrying out their operations. I don't ever suggest that anybody, like I said, put themselves in a position where they're standing in the way of them doing their job, or where they are confronting ICE or becoming physical with ICE or anything like that. But I will say that there are like really practical things. So there's an organization called the Delaware Coalition for Immigrant Justice that has formed in this past year. They have a hotline for people who want to just like make people aware of ICE activity in an area.
Interesting. Okay.
So and the reason for that is because we do, like, I'm actually part of the coalition myself for Sussex, but we do look at like what is ICE doing, and are they producing warrants? Are they not? Are they, there's a lot with that as well, as far as like whether they should or shouldn't, what the president has said they're allowed to do compared to what the usual laws actually say about it.
Makes complete sense.
So it's kind of a big conundrum, really, because I couldn't work for ICE, not just because, I'm an advocate, but because things change all the time, and they're being told, do this, now do this, and, this is your quota that you want to meet this day, and this is what, I know they're being offered a lot of money to do that, and, whatever, but the different volunteer positions that this coalition has that people can help with is manning the hotline, especially if you're a Spanish speaker or a Haitian Creole speaker in Delaware. They do it by like shifts, you know what I mean? Like you might be on call from 4 to 8 on a Saturday or or whatever. So you would sign up for what is most convenient for you.
Of course.
You can be someone who is confirming that ICE is in the area, because what happens is when someone calls, someone then goes and tries to make sure that they actually are there. Because on social media especially, people will see somebody with a vest on and they're like somebody from probation and parole. And they'll be like, oh my God, it's ICE. And they put it on social media, and then everybody's like scattering, and
it
scared
gets blown out of proportion,
reason.
100%.
Yes.
100%.
They also are really working to like help people to connect with resources. So what happens in my experience, what happens when a loved one is taken from a family by ICE is that it leaves the other person in crisis.
Oh, of course, I understand.
So,
I can't imagine.
It's not like everyone is planning for this and socking away, tons of money. Not that they're making tons of money, but you know what I mean? It's not like...
Yeah, it's not like they call you and tell you that they're coming most of the time, right? I wouldn't assume, right?
No, not
I wouldn't assume it's like that. So I wouldn't think I agree.
The element of surprise is definitely
I would
how
think
they work.
So. I would think so.
But, a lot of times it's like single moms with babies, that don't work. And so now they find themselves in a situation where they need to find a job. They've got to find daycare. Yeah. They might not have much food in the house as it is. They might need diapers. And so the coalition will help them to find those resources.
For the transition period, I see.
Yeah, sometimes if we have it and the person is like in a crisis situation financially, we'll give them some funds.
Okay, gotcha. No, that's a great cause then. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So there's that, and then also like sometimes people want to do something to feel like they're making their mark or just doing something positive to put that out there in the world. There's also an organization called Cartas de Paz, where you can be a pen pal to someone who's in detention.
Oh, my wife, she loves pen paling. My wife, she's huge into that. She would love to tell her about that. No crap, that's awesome.
So, yeah,
that's awesome.
I always suggest that because folks that are in detention, the way that things are, and this has always been, I don't know why they do it this way, but when they arrest someone, they put them in a detention center, but within a week or two, they generally move them like across the country or far south. Sometimes it's logistic reasons, like we're going to be deporting them and we have planes that are leaving out of Louisiana. So sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's just, I believe, that it's because they don't want them to have access to their attorneys and family to be able to come visit them.
I see.
So, so anyway, if you can get, a card or a letter and you don't have to be able to speak a different language because you can use Google to translate whatever you said
good point.
And mail it in.
Very good point.
But it is helpful, and there's a good chance too that you may never hear back from the person because they are moving people out of the country quickly. But it's just a way to let somebody know that like they're a human being and they're cared about.
No, that's awesome. I really like that. That's I will definitely make sure I tell my wife about that and look into that. That's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. Like you said, regardless of the situation, we all can be a little more human and have emotion and have a soul and care about people.
Absolutely.
And no matter how we feel politically, whatever our belief is, like you said, we're all still human. We all can still have a heart, and we can definitely do a lot better with that, all of us, for sure. But like I said, all I can say is thank you for sharing your perspective. I learned a lot from it. I hope everybody else did, but I truly think that I enjoyed your way that you approach things and the way that you handle yourself, because I think if we all felt that way and talked that way that you talk, I do think we'd have a lot more solutions in that area. So I really respect what you're doing and appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
And hopefully there's a lot more people that are like you that are doing it, and hopefully we find more people to do it, because it seems like that's the biggest issue right now.
Yes.
But so obviously, like I said, thank you again for everything you do, and continue to do what you're doing. And you definitely have our respect, and you're welcome back on here anytime. And thank you again for all that you do. And as always, appreciate everybody that tunes in. Hopefully everybody learned a lot from that. And as always, same message as always, spread love, spread kindness. Let's try to make this world a better place for all of us to want to live in and exist in. And EOLE, everybody love everybody. And hopefully we're doing our part in influencing others to want to do that. And continue to spread love in this world. And as always, we'll see you every Wednesday. And there's other content out. Make sure on Fridays you check out Top 3 and 3, our sports report. Saturdays we have our Mystery live on YouTube. You can check out our Mystery Box. We're opening something live new on Saturdays, every Saturday. And on Monday we got Redacted Reality or Chew on This rotating. So, and obviously some music coming out as well. So everybody stay tuned for everything. Like and subscribe if you can. Appreciate everybody that does. And we will see you again in a week. And thank you again, Joanne. You were awesome, and we will definitely try to have you back on again in the future. You're the best. Thank you so much. And this is Who's Even Listening, Season 2, Episode number 25, signing off.